Picture the scene. It's 9 p.m, you're really not that hungry, yet there you are, stood in front of the fridge with the door open, bathed in that familiar glow. You know you shouldn't, but the urge to snack feels almost impossible to fight, and that little voice in your head says, go on, you've had a tough day, you deserve it. And before you know it, you're halfway through a carton of ice cream, and those familiar feelings of guilt and shame wash over you. Sound familiar? But what if I told you it's not a type of weakness, it's a sign that mind and body are stuck in a powerful loop. In this video, I'll show you 6 ways to break the cycle and start to shut down those late night cravings so you can take back control of your evenings. And I'm not talking about denying yourself all the things you enjoy, rather some practical strategies that work with mind and body and not against them. And if we've not met, hi, I'm Ruth. I'm a registered health coach and I help women over 50 build healthy habits that finally last. So the scene with the fridge and the internal debate, that's a pretty common occurrence for many of my clients. It's easy to have a great day and feel fully in control, only for it all to go pear-shaped in the evening. And then that feels like a loss of control, and it's pretty demoralizing to wake up in the morning feeling defeated already. So why does this happen, and why does it keep repeating? Well, late night cravings, they're a complex mix of biology and psychology. So today we're going to build a personal cravings toolkit. First of all, I'll go into the why, so the reasons that people tend to snack. And we'll then get into the how with a list of simple, actionable tips that you can start tonight. Before we solve a problem, we need to understand it. So evening cravings, they don't just happen randomly. So what's going on? Cravings are driven by 2 main forces. What's happening in your body, so the biology, and what's happening in your head, so the psychology. And I'll explain what I mean. Firstly, biology, and there are 2 main factors at play. Firstly, fuel, by which I mean fueling your body with food. Many of us just inadvertently set ourselves up for failure by not eating enough in the day. And if you severely restrict calories or skip meals, then you're going into the evening with a large calorie deficit. So then your dinner might not be enough and your body needs more energy. So what is the quickest way of getting some energy? Yep, sugar and refined carbohydrates. So that's not just a craving, it's your body trying to keep itself going and ramping up the hunger hormones. And secondly, a lack of the right nutrients can play a part. So to build a balanced meal, you need a mixture of protein, fibre and healthy fats. That's what gives you a sense of satiety, so a sense of fullness. And you also need to feel psychologically satisfied after eating, and that takes a blend of different nutrients and textures. And grazing on crisps or chips, to my North American friends, that's not going to fill you up. It's like putting cheap, nasty fuel in your car. It's not going to get you very far. So there are 2 main biological factors driving evening snacking: not enough fuel and the wrong kind of fuel. Both of those will leave you genuinely hungry. And if you're genuinely hungry, then you need to eat. But what about eating when you're not hungry? Where does that fit in? And that comes down to psychology. A modern life can create the perfect storm of stress and distraction. Firstly, when we're upset or when we're stressed, we crave comfort. And from childhood, we've been taught that food is soothing. Just think of the crying child being offered some sweets. And foods that are high in sugar, fat and salt, so-called comfort foods, well, they can give you a sense of comfort or reward after a bad day. And tiredness can also contribute, so making good decisions requires mental energy, so-called cognitive load. So at the end of a long day, when you're mentally drained and that cognitive load is high, the easiest option is to reach for the snack foods. They're easier than cooking and they can give you a quick burst of energy. Secondly, distraction. A lot of the time we just don't pay attention to what we eat. Think about how you eat your dinner. Is it on the sofa in front of the TV? Is it fork in one hand, doom scrolling on your phone in the other? Eating can become an automatic process, so a habit, and we may not even taste the food we're eating. So if we are grazing in the evenings in front of the TV with the bag of crisps or chips or popcorn, it can soon become a habit. Or consider boredom. How often do we just distract ourselves with food for something to do? And many ultra-processed snack foods are very light and airy in texture, so they don't take much effort to eat, they don't require much chewing, so it's quite easy to eat too much. Now I want to just be clear about something here. I'm not going to label those as junk foods for good reason. Labelling something as bad or junk can make it feel forbidden, and we always want the forbidden stuff. We're more likely to crave it. But we can learn to be more in control of our habits and take some of the emotion out of it. Be more neutral. We have nutritious foods and we have less nutritious foods with no moral judgment. So to summarise the psychology, 2 of the other biggest reasons we snack in the evening are dealing with difficult emotions or stress or distraction and boredom. So now on to the 6 strategies. I'm going to classify them into biology and psychology, 3 of each. And it can seem like a bit of a nasty YouTube tactic to say, hey, I've got a bonus tip for you at the end. But I genuinely do have a bonus tip for you at the end. So keep watching or don't keep watching. It's up to you. Now, I'm not one for food rules because food rules lead to a sense of restriction, and as I've discussed, that can lead to a sense of wanting to rebel. But this is one where I'm prepared to make the exception, and I'll explain why. Now, there is a logic in stopping eating at a certain time in the evening, and this has worked for my clients in the past. One client liked to have an 8 p.m. rule, so provided she hadn't had a late finish at work, she liked to have finished eating by 8. But she was a rebel at heart and her brain liked to push the boundaries. So how we worked through it was by focusing on sleep. If we eat too late in the evening, it can have a knock-on detrimental effect on our sleep, and indeed it did for her. It gave her reflux and led to a restless night. And experts advise not to eat in the 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. So by focusing on the positive benefits of a good night's sleep, she was able to stick to it. So biology, and tip number 1 is to go snack free for your sleep. And mentally closing down the kitchen when you've cleaned up after dinner can signal to your brain that it needs to go and focus on something else. Maybe create a new wind down routine. So instead of snacking in front of the TV, have a warm drink, try some stretching or light yoga or reading. Using the time between dinner and sleep to wind down will help you break that habit loop between sofa and snacking. Now, our second tip gets right to the biological core of many evening snack attacks, and that's not eating enough in the day. And by front-loading your fuel, you shift your nutritional focus earlier. The goal is to nourish your body from morning onwards, so by the time evening arrives, you're generally satisfied. You've got enough room for your dinner, but not so much that your body's sending out frantic hunger signals. So you need to make sure that breakfast, lunch and dinner are nutritionally complete. It means ditching the no breakfast, light lunch, massive dinner pattern. Build every main meal around quality protein, healthy fats and high fibre. That's the formula for a satisfying meal. For breakfast, try a couple of eggs, maybe with some avocado and a slice of whole grain toast, or some Greek yogurt with nuts and berries. For lunch, instead of a plain salad with a fat-free dressing, try adding some quinoa or chickpeas, a source of protein and a dressing made with olive oil. Dinner should follow the same rules, so a nice piece of salmon with some green veggies and maybe a roast sweet potato, that'll keep you feeling full. And this works because protein is the most satisfying of the macronutrients, but also the healthy fats and the fibre from those complex carbohydrates, those whole grains, fruit and veggies, they also slow digestion and keep you feeling full for longer. And when you constantly give your body a well-balanced meal, you help eliminate the need for a late night fix. You're solving the problem hours before it starts by listening to your body's signals and working with them, not against them. The point isn't to eat more calories, but to distribute them smartly. You should finish each of your meals feeling satisfied and energized, but not stuffed. So we've talked about fueling your body, but what about those evenings when you genuinely are hungry and you do need a snack? Or maybe you really do intentionally just want the comfort of a snack, and that's okay. And that's where tip number 3 comes in. So rather than mindlessly and endlessly grazing, make your snack a proper snack. Ask yourself, what can I do to make this more nutritious? So if you fancy some chocolate, try a couple of squares of dark chocolate, add a few nuts, add some fruit, put it in a bowl or on a plate, savour it and enjoy it. Make it almost like a mini meal. Focus on adding nutrient-dense food, so some crunchy chickpeas or a handful of nuts. Try and avoid the ones with salt, or a little Greek yogurt. chocolate and some berries with a sprinkle of seeds. By making the snack official and making it more nutritious, you stay in control because you're making an intentional, conscious and positive choice, not a guilt-ridden one. And as a bonus, those snacks that promote fullness are way better than a blast of sugar before bedtime. It's the ultimate win-win. You satisfy your need for a snack, but you're also looking after your body's nutrition goals in the long term. And you're eating with intention. So tip number 3 is to pimp up your snack. Now on to the more psychological tips. We've talked about what to do if you're genuinely hungry, but for a lot of us, we may have lost our hunger and fullness signals over time. It might be years of restrictive or yo-yo dieting. It might be the endless grazing because of the availability of food 24/7, and it might even be because we're perpetually distracted by our phones. Whatever it is, it's easy to overeat because we're eating when we're not really hungry. And yet again, one of the best examples of this is late night grazing. And generally when we do snack like this, it's not because we're hungry, because we've generally just had our dinner. Now, it's one thing to maybe crave something slightly sweet after your dinner. I really enjoy good chocolate, like the 85% stuff, the hard stuff. I have a couple of squares of that after my dinner most nights. It's another thing to mindlessly snack all evening and then mentally beat ourselves up for the perceived failure. So as we've discussed, habits get ingrained in circuits in our brain, so how do we break them? So before you eat, stop. Like literally stop. So this is the stop technique. I really like it, and it's come from cognitive behavioural therapy. So S is for stop. Just stop what you're doing, take a mental pause. T is for take a breath. Actually take a couple of deep breaths to centre and focus on your body. O is for observe. Are you hungry? How hungry are you on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is not at all hungry and 5 is ravenous? How do you know? Do you feel lightheaded? Is your stomach growling? Or are you genuinely fine and you're not hungry at all and this is just a habit creeping in? So if you're at a 1 or 2 out of 5, are you really hungry? And if it's not food you're after, what else are you craving? We'll come on to that in tip number 4. And P is for proceed. If you are still hungry after dinner, then go eat, my friend. If you're not, then what else do you need? So tip number 4 is to stop and listen to your body. Give it a go, it does help. So tip number 5 can be transformative because it takes you from being a victim of your cravings to being a scientist. And it's about learning to decode your cravings. The core idea isn't that the craving is just a desire for food. It's an important piece of information. It's a clue about what you really need in that moment. And here's the thing, it's often not about food. So it's time to get really curious. And here's what you do next time an evening craving hits. You use the stop technique I just described in tip number 4. And at the observe stage, ask if you're hungry. And if you're not hungry, ask yourself 2 questions. Firstly, what am I feeling right now? Be the curious observer of your thoughts and feelings and try to name the emotion. Are you bored or stressed or lonely or anxious? Do you have any bodily sensations? Are you tired? Is there a knot or butterflies in your stomach or a tension headache? The act of naming it creates a little space between the feeling and your reaction to it. And the second question is, what do I need right now? If you feel bored, maybe you need entertainment. If you're stressed, maybe you need comfort or a release. And if it's loneliness, perhaps you need some connection. Keeping a small cravings journal can be an absolute game changer. So each time a craving hits, jot down the time, the emotion, and what you did about it, be it food or otherwise. And you'll start to see some patterns emerge. So to help you make a start, I've made a PDF of a cravings journal to print out and stick on your fridge. I'll put the link to download it below. If you tick the box, you'll get my newsletter winging its way to your inbox every Friday. If you don't want that, just don't tick the box. Now, I am biased, but I do think it's pretty useful. So give the journal a go. Be like a scientist and get curious, because then you can start to use it as a pattern interrupt, like, I know what's going on, I'm stressed. And then start to build up a toolkit of alternative coping mechanisms. If you need comfort, perhaps a warm bath might help more than a carton of Ben & Jerry's. And if you're stressed and need a release, maybe journaling for 10 minutes would help. So tip number 5 is to observe what body and mind really want. Now, of course, if you still want something sweet, then have something sweet. Just do it because it's your choice. Do it with intention because you are in control of the craving and not the other way around. When we lost our old dog Lola last year, I intentionally ate about a tin of Marks & Spencer's chocolate covered pistachios. I knew exactly what I was doing, and yes, it did help, and it was fine. Now, tip number 6 relies on the fact that cravings aren't constant. They rise and fall and can eventually settle, and you can ride them out, and this is called surfing the urge. And the term was coined by Jon Kabat-Zinn, the father of mindfulness. Now, this can feel counterintuitive because when you get a craving, your first instinct can be to ignore it. But like a fractious toddler in a supermarket, if you do that, it's probably going to get louder. So try the opposite and really lean into it and focus on how the urge feels. Do you feel it in a particular part of your body? For example, in your brain, in your stomach? Is your mouth watering? Notice without judgment. And the goal, yet again, is to create a bit of mental distance from what you're feeling and then watch the urge as it ebbs and flows, because most cravings settle within 30 minutes, unlike true hunger, which will just get worse. Now, this technique can work because it shows you through direct experience that you're not powerless over your urges. You can experience a craving and not act on it. And this builds an incredible sense of empowerment, and you can start to break down that connection between craving and eating. But please don't feel disheartened if you give it a go and it doesn't work. It is really, really hard observing your own emotions and feelings. I'm absolutely not an expert at it. It's a continual work in progress. Now, with all these tips and tools covered, it's important to think of one last thing to add to your mental toolkit, and that's a little bit of self-compassion. So what if you have a really crap day and you find yourself at the bottom of a box of cookies, or you tried surfing the urge for 14 minutes and gave up at minute 15? Here's what you do. You forgive yourself instantly. You take a deep breath and you let it go. You do not tell yourself that you're going to do an extra mile walking tomorrow, and you don't beat yourself up. This will help you stop spiraling into guilt and shame, because one night of a little misstep is not going to hurt your long-term goals. And that doesn't make you a failure, it makes you human, because dealing with emotions is really, really difficult. And the most destructive part of late night snacking is actually the psychological fallout. And this is usually because of all or nothing thinking. So that's where your brain tells you that if you haven't done something perfectly, you may as well just give up. And this is where self-compassion steps in, because instead of meeting that misstep with self-criticism, you meet it with a bit of kindness instead. So think about your friend. If your friend came to you and complained that they'd just eaten an entire family pack of Doritos, you go, yeah, so what? Forget about it. Tomorrow is another day. So do yourself a favour and direct that inwards. So true lasting change is not about perfection. It's about what you do to get back on track after a minor detour, because that's what builds true resilience. So we've covered everything from the biological and the psychological reasons for late night snacking to a toolkit to deal with them. We talked about creating structure and focusing on good sleep, and working with your body by front-loading your fuel. We also looked at a strategy to make your snacks feel more complete and nutritious for those times when you really are hungry. We learned how to become a scientist and observe our own feelings by finding the root cause of our cravings and observing how they rise and fall like waves, plus the often forgotten act of self-compassion. And if all that was still too much and you just want to take away 3 simple things, let it be these. Firstly, late night cravings are not a moral failure, they're a signal you can learn to read. Secondly, fuel your body. Starving yourself only backfires later. And third, consistency beats perfection every time. So if you have a less than perfect night, let it go. Start small, pick one of these tips to try tonight, you've got this. So what foods do you crave, and did any of these tips resonate with you? Let me know in the comments, let's have a chat. And don't forget to download the Cravings Journal, I'll put the link below. In the meantime, I'll leave a video here about building satisfying meals, and I'll see you there.